Hello and welcome to the Menopause Running Club. I'm Gabrielle O'Hare and I'm the founder of the Menopause Running Club. And what this is, it's a community of women, first and foremost. I mean, it does what it says on the tin if you think about it. And it's really all about helping women who are going through menopause, for whom running is a really important thing, to keep running strong and to understand how to support themselves, how to work with their body, how to understand what's changing inside them, but also how to adapt their training and their nutrition to keep them running in the way they want to, and our running journeys are all really individual. Some people might just be a happy solo runner, which is probably where I am. Other people, it's a big social thing, and there's different distances, different goals, different experiences that we want to have with running. But something that really unifies us is how important running is. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I was out for having a run, and I was thinking, why do I run? Why do I really enjoy this? And I came up with quite a few things. Oh yeah, it's the sense of freedom. It's easy. I feel good in my body when I'm doing it. And then I thought, actually, it's the time when I most feel like myself. Not a mum, not a partner, not a coach, not a 54-year-old, not someone who's going through menopause. All those labels just fall away. And it's just a time when it's me in my body, and my mind's quite free. And that's probably one of the reasons as well. And it's just me outside running, moving. And that was a really powerful revelation for me. I mean, I always knew that, but actually to be able to put my finger on that and realize how key that was for me to feeling like the person I am inside, and to be able to transcend any age or any other things. And this is what the Menopause Running Club is about. It's giving us that back. Whatever is important to you about running, whatever it is that makes you want to do it, that makes you feel like the person you are, that you don't want to lose, that's what the Menopause Running Club is about. And this has been a journey for me that's got me to a point now where, I'm really clear about the role, how I want to run on my terms. I understand my body. I understand what's changed. I understand how I can change my training. And that's been a revelation. That's made my life so much easier. It's taken a whole lot of pressure away. I feel more confident than I ever have done in my capability and my capacity to keep running. We can be, when we go through menopause, and certainly this is true for me, you can go through a phase where you start to become frightened of everything. And the changes that you feel in your body can be very frightening, I was frightened of hot sweats. I was frightened of every time I felt a little palpitation, I was frightened of aches and pains and things that I was pulling muscles and twinges. And you tend to almost create this negative story that you roll out in front of you that suddenly means that, you're broken and you'll never be able to run and you'll never be able to do this. And every time I exercise, I'll hurt myself and it'll get worse. And that can really get into your head, and can slow you down and can stop you having goals and hold your confidence back, hold you back. And I very much got into that point where I was just frightened to move forward. And really learning about myself, learning about what my body needs to thrive right now has completely changed that. I have got so much confidence. I have got so much self-belief in what I am capable of if I do the right things, and I know what those right things are. And all the time when I was going through menopause, and even before, I had this really strong sense that I didn't want it to change me in any way. And I have that today. I have that belief. And I just read a really great quote yesterday. I should have written this down. But it was something along the lines of, you're only old when you start using your age as a reason, as an excuse. And I thought that was fantastic, because that really sums up my belief. And that's what I want to bring to you, bring to people, other women like me who want to join the Menopause Running Club. We want to keep that belief. We don't want our age to be an excuse. We don't want our hormones to be an excuse. We want to keep running. We want to keep running strong. We want to know what the right things to do are so we don't waste our time, And I'm in a really good place now, but very different 7 years ago when I was really in the sort of the throes of the changes of perimenopause. I was really at a point where, there was a lot going on in my life. And I think this is really common. It's quite cruel really that menopause and real big serious life challenges happen at the same time, and that's really tough. So for me, what was happening, and it was just as we're going into lockdown, I was in the most dreadfully stressful job. My menopause symptoms, which I didn't even realise were menopause, were anxiety, overwhelm, stress. You know, I could hardly cope with things. Loud noises were really starting to freak me out because my brain was just like turning around, constantly worrying. And anything extra stimulation was almost just like turning that screw. And you know, I was in a really tough job that I was struggling with. I was struggling to cope. I'd started breaking down in tears in work, which had never happened to me before. And my dad at the same time was then diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I went into my boss one day and I said to her, I'm really struggling with the pressure. I've just found this out about my dad, you know, literally and I really need some support. And that afternoon I was fired. So everything just turned upside down in my life. I didn't even want to tell my dad that I'd been fired because I was worried that he'd think it was his fault. Of course he didn't. He wasn't that sort of person. And then we went into lockdown. So I had no job. I suddenly realised I was going through menopause. My dad was dying, and because the world had changed so much, we're all in that same position, weren't we? And I just thought, oh my God, you know, what's my life going to be? How am I actually going to earn a living? And there was, you know, alongside that, I was struggling with a lot of cravings. I was struggling with weight gain. I was struggling with injuries. Like I said, you know, just really felt like my body was breaking down. But I think probably the catalyst of my dad's diagnosis and me realising I was perimenopausal, and then the world coming to a standstill, literally, I really had this clarity that what was so important was my health and my fitness, my body, you know. If I didn't have that, what did I have? And that was like a real turning point for me. And that's when I started to look, okay, what do I need now? What's right for me? What's happening? And it was really that series of questions and that curiosity about finding out what I needed to do. And, you know, initially I went to Google with the days before ChatGPT. Times move quick, don't they? And I couldn't find any answers to the questions that I was putting in to search. You know, I was just getting general advice that I knew wasn't right, that didn't feel like what I needed. So I decided to become a personal trainer. So it's funny how things work out. So I spent lockdown sat in a little corner of my house with my head buried in books and studying and going back to school, which had been a long time since I'd done any studying. And by the time lockdown finished, I was qualified personal trainer, and I opened my gym, the Over 40s Personal Trainer, and within no time this is my little gym here that I'm in, still here, and in my garden, and I was full of clients, women mostly, some sent their husbands eventually, but mostly women who were going through menopause and who were going through the same as me. And that was an eye-opener number 2, because up until that point, bizarrely, I just thought I was the only person who was struggling. And when I started working with all these different women, and I was able to say, oh yes, do this, do that, here's this advice, yes, you want to lose weight, eat this, eat that, do you want to get stronger, do this, do that. And all these instructions that were giving people didn't necessarily help, because what I started to understand was how complicated and difficult people's lives were. And that started moving me on a different path as well, because it was, okay, we're going through all this craziness, these really stressful, intense periods of time. We want to look after ourselves over here. We know this is important, but life is just like, just throwing curveballs at us all the time and just sort of hammering us down. How do we find some space in that to do the things that are important for us? And that became a big part of my focus, not just giving people advice, but actually helping them to implement that advice and find space for themselves. And that led to me writing a book, which is called Why Women Over 40s Can't Lose Weight. And it wasn't about the things you should or shouldn't be doing, or even how your hormones are changing. It was really a look at how our lives just prevent us from doing those things that we need to do for ourselves. And that was like a big change in my direction, is not just the advice, but how do we make that happen at this stage of our lives, which is really tough. So I realised personal training wasn't just enough for this. Women had lots of imbalances by this point, so I became a corrective exercise specialist. And, you know, that was something, again, just my experience of training, of seeing things that worked for me, seeing things that didn't work for me, and then seeing that repeated in my clients, and just sort of really seeing the things and understanding the changes that my body has been through over that time. And I worked with Stacey Sims. Well, I didn't work with her, that's maybe overstating it a little bit, but I read a lot of her stuff, and she did a course for personal trainers, so I took that course, and that really deepened my understanding of menopause and how that's changing. And I'd been a runner for a long time in my life. I've not talked about this yet. And because at the beginning of this journey, I'd stopped running. I just, for some reason, fell out of love with it. I'd run since I was in my early 20s, about 22, terrible at school, at sports. And I can still remember my first run when I was, like I say, 21, 22, and I did the same 100-metre course that we did at primary school, and I thought my lungs were going to come out of my chest. I can still literally remember being there and just the burning sensation in my lungs that just were exploding. And I can't even imagine, it was such an awful feeling. I don't know what made me carry on, but I did. And I was absolutely over the moon that this image of myself as this terrible runner, had actually gone out and run. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And then gradually was able to run further. My energy just went through the roof. You know, I think I'd started to lose weight because I was gaining a bit of weight in my early 20s. But my energy just shot up, and that was something that I absolutely loved. So running stayed a big part of my life. It was a big part of mine and my dad's life as well. We ran together, and then in my 40s, it just fell away. I don't know. I can't explain it. I put it down to perimenopause. All these things you can't explain. I just didn't want to do it anymore. And then in my very early 50s, Tim and I went to the Alps for a cycling holiday. I'd got into cycling in between that with him. He's a big cyclist, and that's another story. I'm a very nervous cyclist. But we went to the Alps, and I was going down from this campsite we were in one morning through these woods to this little supermarket where I'd get the croissants for breakfast and this amazing yogurt. And I just could see these trails in the mountains, and I saw someone in there, and I just thought, I wish I'd had my trainers and I could just run up there. And I came home and I bought some new trainers and I started running. And I've not stopped. I've had a few ups and downs with injuries, and the more we work together and get to know each other, you'll hear all about those. But then that's been useful, because that's taught me again more things about how my body's changed and what you need as a runner in your 50s, and things that I didn't need in my 20s and 30s, and even in my early 40s when I was still running. I could just go and put my trainers on, open the door, I was off, that was enough. But in my 50s, it wasn't, and I wish someone had told me. But you know, that's why this is here, because this is me bringing all my experience and all the things that I've learned into this and making this information available. And you know, I think if I look back at this whole journey that I've been on over this past 6 or 7 years or so, it's quite incredible. You know, from a personal point of view, my fitness and strength has transformed massively. I've gained around 10 kilograms of weight through menopause, which I lost. Like I say, confidence is just something else, and that's self-belief, and that self-belief is important. And you know, now am I where I want to be as a runner? No, but actually that excites me. That excites me to think that today I am 54 and there is still potential for me to get better. And I have a plan and I have a strategy of what those things are. You know, I'm just about to do my first ultramarathon. Once I've done that, I'm going into a completely different training phase, which is all about power and speed. And I'll be sharing that through this group. But you know, this is me being on a journey, and this is me knowing that I'm not at the end, I'm just at the beginning. And in terms of, you know, the results of the women I've worked with so far, and I've worked with so many different women from so many different backgrounds, you know, what I've helped them do is just find that space in their lives to prioritise their health. And I feel very proud to have been able to do that for them, and for those women to let me in their life and let me support them, and really take them away from dieting culture. Weight loss is important for a lot of people, and it's a real problem for us that we can really struggle with. But the dieting industry, the dieting culture isn't the right thing for us now. So I've helped people make more permanent lifestyle changes with their diet that's meant they've lost weight, they've maintained that weight loss, and they've got skills now and a philosophy more than anything else that they're confident is going to keep them where they want to be. At the same time, of living their life is just about finding a balance that's right for them, that individual woman. And that's been one thing. The food, really important to me, really important to my clients, and then embedding strength training routines. And that's been amazing to see women who had never done strength training from all different exercise backgrounds, either no exercise or runners, and then they started strength training. A lot of people reluctantly thinking they haven't got time. But when they do it, they feel amazing. And then when they start to feel the benefits, how that translates into their runs, into the rest of their life, they are just absolutely hooked. So I love that. And for the runners, it's really been about helping them find the right level for them and find the right training level for them that fits into their life. And when you take the pressure off, and when following like a structured program that you think is the right thing to do, and start leaning into you and what you need and what's the right thing for you, what's the right amount of rest, the right amount of recovery, and also what your goals are, and start to structure your training around that, well, then some really interesting things happen, And part of most women's journey from a running point of view, there's some injury in there somewhere. That was in mine. Again, when we stop using that injury as a limitation or a problem, and we see that as information, well, then we can start to structure your training around building some strength. And that's when the confidence changes and you start to know that you've got, like me, a long journey ahead of yourself. You've got plenty of scope to improve. And that's what I'm bringing to the women who are working with me, who are runners. Getting the energy back, sleeping better, enjoying the training more, seeing the improvements in their times or the distance or the recovery from long distance. It's really, really exciting. And again, this isn't the place to talk about that, but I will be talking about that in a little bit, on some of the other videos that you'll see here as well. So you can learn more about that, But the bottom line is that, I'm in a fantastic place right now. I am really excited to be at a point where, I've got so much experience, so much information that I want to share with other women who want to run, so that we can all feel this good, have this amount of confidence, and all share this journey together. And I think, running can really change us. It can change our worlds. It can have a huge impact on so many different things. And I'm very excited that you're here and that you're part of that journey with me as well today. So thank you for watching this little video. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Bye for now.